Welcome to TFW Live, the best kept secret in fantasy football, where we keep that week one feeling going all year long. This is episode 333, where we're going to be talking all things waiver wire for week 6 with our friend Alex Caruso from Footballguys. I am Big Travie, and I'm joined now by one of my best friends on the planet, Austin Sear. We also got our guy, Donnie Tubbs, working in the background behind the scenes. Got to say what's up to you boys, say what's up to Whisper Nation. We got a lot of gratitude for Whisper Nation and those in the chat. Jersey J, Nash Co. Love you guys for being in here, and I know a ton of you are about to join us and get your questions in for the waiver wire as well. We've got big gratitude for our members over on YouTube who support the show through a monthly subscription. So we got to shout them out here. Gus Ramos, Pizza Belly, Don Caples, Bailey Ziegler, Kevin Davey, Nick, Brett Zabo, John Credit, Eric Lorenzen, Donnie Tubbs, Jersey J, and the Hanimal. Lady V also in the chat. Got to shout her out as well. And, of course, those who followed us on social media. Hello, Mr. Anderson, Andy, Kellen, Gustine, AC1622, Philly Bohm, James Thompson, and Replay the Down podcast. And if you love fantasy football, you want to join a community where you know you belong, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. We're trying to get just one more subscriber on this stream, just one more. It could be you. And if you're new, if you're old, if you're in the middle, let us know where you're streaming from. We'd love to shout you out on the show. As mentioned on today's show, we're joined by a very special guest, our friend and colleague in the fantasy football space, Alex Caruso of Footballguys. Alex, welcome back to the show. You could not have better timing on that one. Our boy Alex is experiencing a little bit of technical difficulties right now.
We love you, man.
We are probably going to have to rain check this show and move on without him. But we had planned to go through the waivers with Alex. Technically, we're going to go through the waivers with us, which is fine. And Whisper Nation, who's in the chat, Brett Johnson in here as well. Let's see if we can get Alex back on here. Alex, how are you, man? Welcome back to the show, brother.
How are we doing?
We're doing all right.
How are you, man?
Man. You guys, I don't know how well you guys can hear me, but you might have to just let me.
I think
love you, man.
We'll have to rain check it, Alex. We love you, brother. We'll get you on the next one.
Hopefully your fantasy teams are going stronger than the Wi-Fi, man. We're all working on it.
We had Alex on here, but we had some questions for Alex, and we'll get those asked next time he's on, hopefully next week or something in the future here when he gets some Wi-Fi updated. But Austin, I'm gonna ask you the question you were gonna ask Alex.
I'm ready.
You know, they say hindsight's 20/20. Yeah. Using hindsight, which preseason takes would you take back, and which takes are you especially proud of right now coming into 2022?
You caught me on a tough week to be like, which ones are you not proud of? Because it just started to turn for me, Travie. This is the week when my takes just started to flip around, and you know what? I'll kick it to you first on this.
Okay. No, that's fine. Which preseason takes would I take back? Allen Robinson comes to mind as one I would take back. It's just, a couple of these. Russell Wilson fall into this category of guys in new places that we just kind of chalked up as being a no doubt option, and I guess I had taken for granted too much of the Rams situation in the past and not enough of what their current situation was. Stafford's elbow, the offensive line, things like that with Allen Robinson. And we'll talk a little more about A-Rob at the, in the waiver section, because he is becoming one of the, more dropped candidates lately. And then Russell Wilson, shoulder or not, I just really thought it was all lined up. And on that same token, the Seattle Seahawks, their offense being a lot better than I thought. So there's a lot of things that are just funky and different right now. And I think it's just, it behooves us to get in on that and understand that things are not what they are and try to adjust accordingly.
I think, yeah. I think the Rams are just a really big question mark right now, as is my thinking. So
it's all good, brother. We will move on here, but as you know, we work through the top waivers, and I see the chat already popping off. Some people loving their victories and what they've been able to accomplish. We appreciate you, Whisper Nation. We want to talk about you and your teams and your waivers and all the questions you have. And we love your questions. But we want to get through these waiver ads and get you our knowledge and what we think and our takes on those waivers. And if you want a question immediately answered, you can always hit that super chat. We'll hit you with a whisper woo and we'll get your question to the front of the line. But know that we will be getting to all the questions once we get through all the waiver wire stuff here. Austin, our cover boy of the waivers, the guy we're going to talk about first, Kenneth Walker, man. And you had a close call situation with Kenneth Walker. I don't know. We kind of worked through it. You probably weren't ever going to drop Ken Walker based on seeing the game, but he was definitely a guy that had a little injury thing of his own coming into last week. And then Penny was dominating. And now here we are 1 week later looking at Kenneth Walker as maybe the waiver ad of the year.
Kenneth Walker leading the waiver wire this week certainly is a candidate for waiver wire edition of the season based on hype. You mentioned my almost dropping of Ken Walker. I picked him up in like the 8th or 9th round in our league of record. I wasn't going to drop him, but I needed to drop somebody to pick up a tight end on Sunday. And I was considering watching the game. And if Penny got out of that game healthy, Juju Smith-Schuster or Ken Walker were going to be hitting the waiver wire for me so I could pick up a tight end. Fortunately, didn't get ahead of myself on this one. Was able to work out that trade that we did on the live on air right before the show. So that came through, but I wasn't going to drop Ken Walker until I saw Rashad Penny come out of that game healthy. But it was something I was considering doing there, and then he didn't come out of the game healthy, air cast status. I was telling Chelsea, I'm like, yeah, Penny got hurt. She's like, how hurt? I was like, air cast. She's like, oh, okay.
It's not good.
And then Ken Walker comes in and busts out that big-ass run. So it's certainly why he's leading the charge right now for the waiver wire additions.
And as we talk through the waivers, I think it's a good strategy. The strategy you pulled there is to remind people to be, kind of rotating to the bottom of that roster, backup running backs as they come available. Some of these guys that like knowing the start times as you did, adjusting your drop schedule around those start times as you kind of did, and being able to work trades within. And if there are roster limitations in your league, knowing that, I play in that league of record where you're able to do that. I play in another league where the guy's locked no matter what, like even on your roster if the game is started. So you can't drop them. You have to kind of roll through them. So knowing those differences can really help in your waiver ads and getting ahead of the waiver wire. But we are going to talk about the waiver wire and get to the running back position. Kenneth Walker only rostered in 61% of leagues. I think he's actually available in over 50% of all ESPN, Yahoo, those leagues too. People kind of gave up a little bit on Walker just as far as what, injuries coming through, and then right in time for this ad as well. Eno Benjamin. Go ahead, Austin. Yeah.
I was going to say, because I know that the sleeper numbers are a little bit higher, a little ahead of the curve. You got sharper folks generally playing on sleeper. More dedicated fantasy players tend to go to sleeper. We know why on that. But it makes sense, honestly, if somebody went ahead and dropped Kenneth Walker, because Rashad Penny was balling. You didn't need Ken Walker eaten into Rashad Penny work on merit, and you're banking then just on an injury. So Ken Walker becomes like that Alexander Madison, that Tony Pollard of old, that like elite level handcuff, but you still need something to happen. So it doesn't surprise me that people were dropping Ken Walker because Penny was balling.
Yeah, 100%. And like we see this all the time where you think we've experienced it so many times where you're like, I'm just going to drop this guy. Darrell Henderson comes to mind for you, Austin. What was it, 2 years ago or a year ago? Where it's like you're like, I think it's okay to drop him now. And that week it happened. So we understand it's going to happen to the best of us, and that's where we're at with the percentages here on Walker. But if he's there, I think the FOB recommendation can't get too high here for me. I think 100% on Kenneth Walker is fine by me on my standards. I know, Austin, typically you're a little bit more conservative with FOB or your waiver budget. Would you suggest anything?
I'd drop it all. Okay. I would throw it all at Kenneth Walker. And here's again why I feel totally comfortable busting my entire WOB on one dude. Travi, we in our league of record changed to the WOB FOB format several years ago. Before that, for like 6 or 7 years in our league of record, we had a waiver priority system. You finish worst in the week, worst overall, you get the first waiver wire ad of that week. And we saw it so many times where if you start off good, you start off 2-0 with some decent points, and then you have a good season, you never get a top waiver ad. You might not even ever get a top 5 waiver ad.
Right.
And you still keep the season moving forward. So with having a WOB budget, you could go ahead and spend your whole freaking wob on a dude. And then the concern is like, well, what are you going to do down the road? It's like, I don't know. Ask the people who are in waiver priority systems what they do when their team is good.
That's
down
it.
the road. You don't get access at all. So this is a chance to actually get a pivotal type of player, and it might take your whole wob. But if you're like, especially your team leading, like, go for it, man. Get yourself a real piece.
Yeah, because it's not even just about Walker, who you'll probably end up starting in most cases, even if your team is good. But let's say your team is so good you won't, but you block another team in your league from getting that piece to make them better. It's multifaceted here, what you're able to do when you blow the wob on a guy like Kenneth Walker as well. So the second most added running back right now, Austin, is Eno Benjamin. We saw both James Conner and Darrell Williams leave this game for the Cardinals. Eno handled about 11 touches, I think, and got a touchdown as well. Conner has I think it was an ankle, and then a knee maybe in this latest one, and then obviously the knee for Darrell Williams. I mean, it seems like both of these guys kind of dinged up. Eno could be in line to get the bulk of the carries here in Arizona. And then the third most added, I think, off air, you and I were talking, even us and Alex, when his internet was coming through, about DJ Dallas just not being a guy we're interested in, but he is the third most rostered. So I'll kick it to you here for some honorable mentions. And you dropped a juicy one here before we got live on the show about a rookie running back over in New England.
Pierre Strong is a name that has crazy mystery box appeal. Do I think Pierre Strong is a guy you want to spend a fat amount of your wob on? No, not necessarily. But it's, to me, of all of the guys we have on this list outside of Kenneth Walker, Pierre Strong, to me, is physically nice. You look at his comps, he's a comp to Elijah Mitchell, 99th percentile speeds, or 40-yard dash, 4.37, 95th percentile speed score, 86th percentile burst score, 75th percentile agility score. These are all impressive numbers. We know that the New England backfield is typically a committee. We also know it's usually pretty unpredictable. Jonah Gray, what's up? So the fact that Ramondre Stevenson is balling, to me, doesn't slam the brakes on Pierre Strong's potential, because we got Damon Harris, who's probably out. They went and drafted Pierre Strong. He hasn't gotten a handoff all season. If there is any kind of consistency among the New England backfield, it's that, like, it's kind of inconsistent. So I think this is the time when they could bring him in. Maybe he's good. You got to keep it going. Do I think it's going to be a high probability of explosion? No, but you get a real mystery box with real upside in a confusing situation. And on this side, the confusion is good. It's benefit.
Yeah, I'm with that. We also mentioned a couple other guys that we'll drop in here now for like honorable mentions. Josh Kelly, Jerick McKinnon. Who else do we have?
Jay here.
Jackson. I know he's going to drop Pacheco.
I don't hate it.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about it in the game last night in the first half, that Andy Reid just seems to be using a full-blown three-headed committee, and it changes game to game who the secondary piece is that's stealing work too.
I lost my listener league matchup because I started Pacheco over Mike Boone. And Mike Boone had like 12 points. Pacheco had a fat 0. I needed 2 points to beat Easy Daddy. I didn't get it. I'm falling deeper into the abyss in the listener league. Ouchie. But Pacheco is an honorable mention to drop because of the points that you just made. Jerick McKinnon looks good. CEH looks fairly established. I think Pacheco could do work with the opportunity. I just don't know why he would get that opportunity. The Chiefs are winning. What they're doing is working.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. We talked even like, I don't have any kind of basis for this, but even if we saw CH go down, who's to say they wouldn't activate Ronald Jones to make it 3 heads again in this backfield? So that one, yeah, that one's definitely one. I love what Fran's friend said here. We mentioned Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly with 12 touches, over 80 yards total on the as a running back yesterday. Even with the giant king-like game out of Eckler, Kelly becomes really interesting. He scored a touchdown as well. He becomes a guy that should slot in. We'd love to see him get this a little bit of receiving work because he could slot in as a true handcuff for Eckler. And we just haven't seen that before with Eckler in his time as the number one.
Yeah, Eckler's not going to dominate presence. He's not going to be on the field 100% of snaps. He's not going to have 100% of the snap share. He's just doing king-ass shit with all the touches he gets. Really efficient, but that means opportunity will be there for Josh Kelly. And this offense is a little bit weirder than we were expecting, maybe a little bit more hot seat action for the coach and some other pieces in LA.
Well, and that's a great point you mentioned about this offense, seeing the injuries it has. Obviously, Keenan Allen fighting through injuries, all these other secondary pieces could mean more of these backs, meaning Josh Kelly gets more opportunity and, dare I say, becomes a standalone kind of value kind of guy. Okay, we'll get moving here to the guys we're considering dropping right now. Khalil Herbert down bad here after Dave Montgomery's return, being dropped the most. He's at 81% roster right now. You assume that number goes down. Chase Edmonds also 83% roster, but being dropped like a bad habit. And Caleb Huntley, who did see a little bit of work, but Atlanta just using every back they can over there, being dropped in leagues as well. So, Austin, we talked about these honorable mentions. We talked about the three that, were the most added. Anyone here stick out on the drop list that you'd be okay kind of holding on to versus the other guys? Yeah,
I think Khalil Herbert is a talented running back. You and I were talking about Khalil's viability in a world with David Montgomery being healthy. Mm-hmm. And I don't think your take on it was off on they should be running Khalil Herbert more regularly, even if David Montgomery is healthy. We just seen they haven't done that. Right. But it doesn't mean that they shouldn't. And they've been able, even despite having a horrible pass attack, their run game for Chicago is good. And this isn't a team that hasn't won any games. It's weird. They almost won their third game and almost went above 500 this season. So there's still some things to play for. Khalil Herbert, I think, could and should get more involved. And he's been really good with the opportunity. So I would pause on dropping Khalil Herbert. I don't know, who would you rather have if we go back to this list? Eno Benjamin, DJ Dallas, or Khalil Herbert?
I'd rather have Khalil of those three. Eno's interesting because he could get the run this week, but I think it's a short-term kind of fix, for me, where it's that is what Khalil is if Montgomery's in the picture too. So, I guess Eno's a little bit more of a mystery box because you say, hell, if Hopkins comes back, does the offense take another step? Does Eno kind of come into his own? That would be the one case. It'd be more of a 50-50 for me. But since I've seen Herbert do it, I've seen Herbert get graded, among the PFF best at the running back position when he's in there. I kind of side with Herbert on the talent that I've seen so far. But I don't hate hey, I need wins right now. Eno could start this week. I don't hate going Eno over Herbert. I don't know.
Eno though is probably a name that you need to be rostering because James Conner's production has diminished. We expected it to diminish. He's also got another injury already. It seems like he avoided a major one, but it seems like James Conner's body is just, I don't want to say breaking down a little bit, but I just
could be. Yeah, it definitely could be. You don't get good vibes from it, I would say, based on
who's got bad vibes, man.
Yeah, and they picked up Corey Clement. Speaking of vibes, that doesn't speak to what they feel about James Conner and Darrell Williams. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I think Eno is in line for some work here. So I agree with that. So we'll move on to the wide receivers here. Alec Pierce is the number one added wide receiver in sleeper formats, 21% rostership right now. He had a pretty decent game. We watched it there in the muck of that Thursday night game. Alec Pierce shining through and seems to be one of the few guys that actually can catch some of these ducks that Matt Ryan is throwing out there. So he got back-to-back games now with 80 or more yards. Austin, so he's putting in some stuff together here and playing more snaps. We got Jacoby Myers. He's above that 50%, but 64%. Maybe he was dropped because of the injury. Nice welcome back from the injury. He's now averaging 7 targets, 6 catches, and over 80 yards in the 3 games that he's played healthy.
I want to get Donnie's take on this, but I saw a stat on Pro Football Focus's rating of Jacoby Myers. He's leading in some categories. He's playing really good football from a deeper metric standpoint. And then his numbers last 2 games have been really good.
And regardless of quarterback, he seems to demand targets when he's in. You can call it a ho-hum boring type of play, but he seems to be a guy that they look to no matter what.
Zappy,
Mac Jones, whoever it is.
Why would you not be more excited about Zappy right now? And you could say I get it and be hold your breath and let's not actually get excited. But we just saw Zappy come in. And for a team that never benefits its skill players, Jacoby Myers and Ramondre Stevenson went the fuck off, dude.
Yeah.
And Brian Zappy coming in and they just donged out. That whole team did. So I'm kind of feeling what's going on. Zappy makes me happy.
And then the last one's Rondelle Moore. So we talked a little bit about the Cardinals here. Rondelle Moore, back-to-back games with some better usage now that he's back from his hamstring injury, kind of deleting Greg Dortch, as we talked about here. 39% rostership, the third most added guy. I kind of like Rondelle Moore here. His ADOT a lot higher than it was last year. I think Jacoby's the right add of these three, hence the 64%. But I'd actually go Rondelle Moore above Alec Pierce. I don't know how you feel about that. What's up, Ron? Just because I think there's a little bit more upside in that Cardinals offense. Of course, there is the idea that if Hopkins comes back, does that eliminate any kind of upside for Rondelle Moore? How do you feel?
And I hope I'm not being overly emotional as a Cardinals fan. I hope I'm actually being a little bit more accurate because I am emotionally invested in the Cardinals. I'm not feeling this team at all, man.
Yeah,
I think the energy in Cardinals house is off, and I think there are major underlying issues that will not be righted by a pump-up speech. I think we have a bad triangle here going with the 3 points of Cliff Kingsbury, Steve Keim, and Kyler Murray, and I think everybody kind of knows it. And I think until we see some major adjustments, the vibe's going to kind of be, what's the point? I think you're going to see players starting to play for themselves. Maybe if you're someone who doesn't really need to go, maybe if your ego and identity and contract is good, maybe that tissue issue is lingering on you a little bit longer, and maybe you're going to sit 2 weeks out. That kind of shit. I don't think there's a lot of motivation for people to reach for the next level on this. Someone like Rondelle Moore, I do like because he's a young, unproven player, and he has things to go for beyond the whole team chemistry. So that got me going there. But, dude, I'll just tell you, man, I'm not excited. Like, if we talked about, is Kyler Murray a buy low? You shouldn't be paying a lot for him, but I wouldn't want Kyler Murray on my team. I have no confidence, even with DeAndre Hopkins coming back, unless that can be such a spark for the spirit of this squad. Like, I think a vibe going through the Cardinals organization will be like, for what?
And I hear you, and I definitely want to give credence to that because we've talked about mental makeup of some of these things, and I understand the emotional pull there. The one thing I will say about Kyler being like a buy is the defense is so bad for the Cardinals that you could get like a rich man's version of like Blake Bortles in years past, where like these teams they're going to have to throw in these games and these formats, so the volume should be there over time. But yeah, I definitely see in instances like where they get up against a really good defense, he's going to be a guy that's really going to let you down in games. So he's definitely more matchup based than he's ever been. But I do think that that Kyler is a guy that can get there.
Hit me. I'm planting this flag here in 4 weeks, man. I'm going to say it's not going to be a wild question if people in the chat start asking, should I start Geno Smith or Kyler Murray this week?
Dude,
in a month
that would be wild. Speaking of, you talked about this kind of, I know we're getting a little bit off track here, but we're talking about the genetic makeup of this team, this mental makeup. Big game. Seattle Seahawks coming to town to face the Cardinals, or actually, I don't know if it's in Seattle. So Cardinals coming to Seattle. I mean, they dropped this game. There's going to be even more questions about this team. And why wouldn't they drop this game? I mean, the Seattle Seahawks playing really hot. They're going in different directions right now.
The Seahawks don't even have to win this game to feel good about it. This team is supposed to be dog shit, no plays. Everybody's a freaking discount. And they're winning games. They're testing people. They're pushing it. The Cardinals are supposed to be a contender. You know what I mean? Like the Cardinals need to come in and blank fools to feel confident about what they did. So I just think it's bad news for the Cardinals, man, looking forward. I think they've set themselves up with crazy high expectations that they're never going to be fulfilled, which is going to create ongoing disappointment, which is going to drag on everybody's production.
The chat is popping off. We've got about 15 viewers. Hopefully get those likes up if they're not already. Drop us a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, if you like what you're hearing. We see Monier, Randy Miller in the chat with some great start and sit questions, some great trade questions. We're going to get to those questions as soon as we wrap up the waiver wire the show here, the meat of the
Donnie
show.
Coming in with the stat on Jacoby. Thank you, producer Donnie. Jacoby Meyer, 7th best wide receiver grade at PFF, 84.5.
He also says, and above him, you got Chenault and Velus Jones, so he's really 5th.
Look at that.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so for the wide receivers that we're dropping, Mac Hollins, Greg Dortch, Allen Robinson. So I think we're good with all those guys. Would you be dropping? Yeah, I think that's probably good. Anything? Yeah.
They're streamers for me now.
I like that. Okay, speaking of streaming, if you streamed Taysom Hill this last week, which we were not advising it, but I could see it happen. I don't know how many he was started in, only rostered in 27% of leagues on Sleeper. He went off for 4 touchdowns. And what I came away from this weekend saying, Austin, is he just feels like a guy that's better than the churning through the streamable tight ends at the bottom now. If New Orleans takes this and logically says, hey, he helped us win, he was the biggest playmaker for us, we should use him more. I mean, even if he's only getting these red zone looks, that's what you're kind of hoping for out of a tight end anyways, is that they can score when you're streaming. So I like Taysom Hill as a streamable tight end, as maybe the top streamer out there. And I think picking him up to be your tight end option if you whiffed on some of these other mid-round tight ends like a Cole Kmet or somebody like that early on, I think Taysom Hill is a fine play each and every week.
Taysom Hill is a really weird case. I don't know exactly how to frame it. We'll have to see what the New Orleans Saints continue to do with Taysom Hill moving forward. Jersey J in the chat saying, sell Hill, sell him now. We talked about a sell high candidate pre-show. I mentioned Taysom Hill myself as a sell high. That is if you can get primo. You got to get something for him because this guy can do it any week. Here's the thing. We talk about the emotional makeup of the Cardinals. The Saints were another down and out team, right? They've got Jameis Winston, who's a weird ass dude. Like, I know we all love our weird like Jameis takes, but if this is the actual leader of your organization, you're a little concerned. Like, this guy is sporadic. This guy's like not overly impressive really in any category except for like gaffes. Like real talk, you know what I mean? Like, he can chuck the rock, sure, but he's a little bit careless. He's a little bit funky. He's funny. He's weird. He has gaffes. Like, he's mentally a little bit all over the place. Not a guy you love to be your tried and true leader of the squad, right? He's got 4 cracked vertebrae. The perfectly coiffed one himself, Andy Dalton's coming in. The Red Rock, you're like, fuck, dude, what are we going to – this is the fucking lost season, right? Kamara's got broken rib cartilage. You're like, shit, all this shit's going down. It's not looking good. Michael Thomas is in. He's out. He's in. He's out. Chris Olave is a nice spark, but, like, that's pretty much it, right? And then – you lose the double doinker against the Vikings. And then they come back this week against Seattle. And I'd say Taysom Hill, man, gave him such an emotional lift. I was watching the end of that game where they're all in victory formation with Andy Dalton taking the knees to close out the game. Should have probably been Taysom Hill. The announcer said that just as like an honorable thing. But I'm watching Alvin Kamara in the backfield in that victory formation, clapping his hands. I can see him more excited.
Yeah.
Taysom Hill can be what they wanted Tim Tebow to become if Tim Tebow would have just gotten on board with it. He's returning kicks. He's rushing the ball. He's throwing the ball. He's strange. I think it makes a lot of sense for New Orleans to ride this dude as much as they can in the situations where it makes sense, even just for the emotional uplift on this. So, like, I really like what Taysom Hill could be doing, and I can't think of another example, Travis, of a Taysom Hill in my, like, football consciousness. It's weird.
Yeah, and like we're going to move on to the next guy here, and it just shows you the dichotomy of what we're dealing with tight end, right? The number 2 added tight end here is Hayden Hurst. And so, like, while I think that while Higgins is out or should he be out for extended time, Hurst is going to be a decent streamable option. Taysom Hill provides more upside if, you know, and like week winning upside where Hurst is like can get you the like 6 to 10 points you get out of your tight end. But Taysom Hill can really swing the momentum for you any given week, and we've already seen it.
And Andrews provide more upside than Taysom Hill. Those are the only 2 tight ends in the NFL that provide more upside than Taysom Hill to me.
It was funny enough about yesterday as I was like telling people it looked like, you know, Travis Kelce took it personal. Taysom Hill scored 4 touchdowns. Kelce said, hold on, boy, like I'm number 1. So we definitely see that. And I think that's an astute point you make there, that just those 2 having the over one. The other one is Javen Njoku. He's been on this show every week. Pretty much it feels like 74% just made me think, come on, get him back, get him owned more than this. He's doing a great job. He's an athletic freak that's paid on a team that is a lot better than I think we thought they would be with Jacoby Brissett. So we've got some things moving there. So as far as droppable tight ends, we've got Tyler Conklin, Dalton Schultz, and Will Dissly. Austin, any issues with dropping these 3? Any case you want to make for Tyler Conklin? We saw his
breaks
floor.
My heart, man. Tyler Conklin is a more athletic tight end than you probably have on your waiver wire, but we've watched his involvement start to continue to diminish, and we got blanked last week. He did almost have a huge catch down the field on a streak. So that shows what he is capable of, but he's a streaming tight end for me now, man. He's a streamer, and that's it. Oh, now really quick, because it was relevant to the topic at hand. Nash Co asked, should I hold on to Kyle Pitts as my second tight end and pick up Hayden Hurst?
I think holding Kyle Pitts is the right move. I think if you're gonna stream above him, like who knows what's going on with the hamstring and how long he'll be out. But Hayden Hurst isn't a bad option to go with, especially with what we were talking about with T. Higgins being the ankle being ginger right now.
I like the upside a lot more though on the Kyle Pitts side. But hey,
yeah. As long as Kyle Pitts is going to play, that's the big thing. We got to see what goes on with that. Let's see. So Geno Smith here is the number one added quarterback across all formats. Austin aptly dubbed him G-Yes, not Geno this year. He is absolutely balling and continues to just drop dimes. I mean, if you look at the highlight reel from that game against the Saints and really all season, he is making some incredible throws, Austin. And this offense, way better than we thought it was going to be. And, I remember Ian Hartett saying last week, basically, like after the Patriots game, are the Seahawks what we thought the Lions were going to be? Like they are the team that's out there kind of doing it above their means, and really not above their means. If you look at the wide receiver play, if you look at the running back play, they're definitely a good team, and they're putting some points up, and their defense really bad. So Geno Smith, is this going to last all year, Austin? That's the question I really have.
I want to say yes, man.
Right.
It looks like Geno's got a good head on his shoulders right now. It looks like he's in a good place mentally, physically, and spiritually. He looks like he's centered more than I've ever seen him be centered. And the big existential question around the Seattle Seahawks organization is how good is Pete Carroll? And we've been saying not good. We've been saying, what are you doing with Russell Wilson? Let Russ cook. And now we're saying maybe Pete Carroll had something to do with Russell Wilson's success. Maybe he set him up well for a lot of those 9 seasons of Pro Bowl appearances. And you look at the rest of the squad, man, good running back situation. Penny and Walker was nicer than Walker and DJ Dallas, but Ken Walker is really good at running the football. At least he was at Michigan State. He's looked good so far. Tyler Lockett, man, I have said sorry before. I'm going to say sorry to Tyler Lockett again. This dude is way better at football than I was giving him credit for. Tyler Lockett's a fucking dude. And DK Metcalf is a dude as well. And I love the combination, and Geno seems to be getting it done. I don't know why we would be super doubting Geno, at least being back-end QB1 the rest of the year.
Yeah, that's where I think he's at, right? Like high-end QB2, back-end QB1. And really, that's just because we're afraid to kind of anoint him right now because, and granted, there's a lot of history of guys like on their multiple teams. They're not, they don't really do this, this doesn't really, this doesn't really happen. Then you look at like the Seattle Seahawks. I think our priors are coming into play, still they're like, oh, well, they can't be that good. The bottom's going to fall out, but I don't know anything that indicates it's not. We talked about the defense. We talked about the skill positions. We talked about Geno actually doing what's within the offense. And that's all you can ask for out of a quarterback if he's making the right decisions. Donnie pointing out that PFF, he's the only one above 90 in a PFF passing grade. I think his adjusted completion percentage is the best for any quarterback through the first 5 games ever. And so we've got some things really cooking for Geno.
The last thing I really want to say about Geno is we see such a stark contrast between Geno now and Geno in prior years. I can understand people being like, oh, it's gonna come back. I actually want to lean on making the case that Geno recognized something in his game and made a hard pivot.
Yeah, I think you're channeling our Uncle Sig from Football Guys saying it behooves us to be optimistic. And I think if we're optimistic on the Seattle Seahawks right now, you're benefiting greatly in fantasy football because of it. All right, so Jimmy Garoppolo, if Geno's not available, we got Jimmy and Carson Wentz here as streamable options. Atlanta and Chicago, both middling to low-tier defenses that you could target this week if you have your Jared Goff on bye, Trevor Lawrence on bye. Not that you're playing Davis Mills, but also super flex situation. So I don't mind either of these guys. I think they're kind of even for me. I might lean Jimmy G, just the speed of the offense I like a little bit better. But Wentz dropping back, I think league lead in dropbacks right now. He's getting sacked a ton. And as we talked about, his coach not really liking him, but they're not going to move on to anybody behind him at the moment. So I don't think Wentz is a terrible streamable play here.
No, I don't either. It's one of those plays where it's like you feel like it's always a shot in the dark with Wentz.
Right.
Like he's chucking it. I have so little confidence, but they're going to try.
Yep.
And they're going to throw it, and they got
the whole game.
Make things happen. Exactly.
They're going to try the whole game. He almost had 3 touchdowns. He also had the pick at the end, but You could have been sitting here with 3 touchdowns last week for Wentz instead of 2. And we were talking about them maybe a little bit differently because they win that game and all those things. But yeah, I think in the world of streaming quarterbacks, that's where you're at. As far as our drops here, to drop or not drop, we got Jared Goff, who's going into a bye right now, being one of the most dropped after a very bad game against the Patriots. Teddy B coming off the concussion. Trevor Lawrence also going into a bye with some shaky games. How are you feeling about, we'll kind of focus on Jared Goff and Trevor Lawrence here. If you're sitting there in a single QB league and you're thinking about dropping one of these guys for another one because of the bye, are you holding on to either of these, or are you good just streaming and seeing what's available each week?
I'm personally holding on to Trevor Lawrence in our league of record. He's like, I'm in a streaming quarterback kind of situation with him and Aaron Rodgers as my 2. And I'm encouraged still by the upside of the Jaguars squad. Look, this Jaguars team was not as, they were coming into the Eagles game week 4. And I'm like, man, if this is a huge, imagine if the Jaguars beat this undefeated Eagles team. We're going to be talking about the Jaguars a lot. They didn't. 4 or 5 turnovers there for Trevor Lawrence. Then another bad performance against Houston, a divisional game. So I understand turning it around on Trevor Lawrence, but I'd say this is still a really young team with a new coach that just came on board that's flashed awesome moments, and you just need to give people some time to overcome the learning curve. Trevor Lawrence is still under the learning curve umbrella for me. Jared Goff is not under the learning curve umbrella for me. Neither is Teddy Bridgewater. I'm a little more okay with that. Jared Goff having such a bad game against the New England Patriots was such a bummer. We were saying
that's so Gabe Davis with Gabe Davis's day. That was such a Jared Goff performance. And that was the one where I'm like, all week I'm debating playing Jared Goff in our league of record because he's got this high scoring offense, but he's going into New England against Bill Belichick, against Matt Patricia, and this team with some banged up weapons. And it just, the bottom fell out. Now I will note here, Jersey J standing up for his boy Jared Goff. He also has Russell Wilson, I believe, in that league. Oof. And Donnie's saying it would be hard for me to drop Goff or Lawrence. Just to look at kind of Goff's. I'm definitely with you on the Lawrence thing. I'd hold on Lawrence. Goff's schedule after the bye is not fun. At Dallas, gets Miami, Green Bay, Chicago, New York Giants, and Buffalo. So really some tough defenses there that are coming up. But again, because their offense is so bad, they could be pushed to throw in games like they were before. So I think he's definitely worth a hold, especially in Superflex leagues. But I think, if you're asking me between the two, I'm holding Lawrence, I think, before I'm holding Goff.
Yeah, Goff's a really nice streaming quarterback for me, but I'm still holding out hope that Trevor Lawrence could be a piece.
Yeah, I'm with that. All right, well, that wraps it up for our waiver wire top ads and drops for this week, which means we get to get into Whisper Nation's questions, and I'm excited to do so because they have been popping off and patient with us, so I'm excited to get to them here. So Jersey J says, hey, bros, I know this is a waiver wire show, but I have a trade question. Wouldn't be right if you didn't. Would you trade Njoku and Olave for Mark Andrews, or am I giving up too much in full point PPR? Austin, what do you think about this one?
I like it. I think this is a really excellent case of a 2-for-1, actually. I think whoever gets Andrews wins in this by quite a bit. I like what Olave is doing a lot, but he's not breaking the system or anything. He's just a nice piece that you got a good value on, but Andrews is an answer for you at the tight end position. I'd take that.
Yeah, I'm in 100% agreement there. He says, I have Higbee and Njoku, and they're considered tight end ones, and my other wide receivers are A.J. Brown, Bateman, and DK. Yeah, I still don't mind this deal in that situation. Nash having some nice words for us. We appreciate you. Lady V, what's going on? Whisper Nation. Tight end waiver wire is sad and scary place, said Brett Johnson. Yes. Tight end with the most upside, tight end with the highest floor. I'd say that most upside is Taysom Hill right now, based on some of the guys we were talking about. What do you think about the highest floor, Austin? Or do you
we're talking about waiver wire additions?
Yeah,
we're talking about all
I believe so. Yeah, waiver wire.
If we're talking about the waiver wire options on our tight end list, we had pulling up here wide receivers. So we got him here. I think the highest floor is David Njoku. He looks to be a role. He looks to have a piece on this offense, and they are better for it. So I think Njoku is certainly that. This is almost like a tough one, though, for me to even put him on the waiver wire because this guy, to me, shouldn't on the waiver wire?
Yeah. I agree with you there. I'd say Hayden Hurst over Tyler Conklin right now just because of the injury situation in Cincinnati and all of the other mouths to feed in New York is why I would lean Hayden Hurst. But these things with tight end, like if you would have asked me that 2 weeks ago, Austin, I would have said Tyler Conklin. But things change fast in the tight end dynamic. So right now, going into this week, I'm siding with Hayden Hurst. I'm siding with the market as they pick him up as the second most for the highest floor. But I do think that it's viable to change in any.
Evan Ingram, honorable mention. He's rostered in like 26% of leagues. He had 10 targets, 6 catches, 69 yards last week, and he's had 69% or more snap percentage every single game.
Double nice. Love it. Let's see. Oh, Jersey J saying grab Disley this week. You think Disley could be a decent?
Brett did grab Disley last week to try to block me from getting a tight end, but then I got a Njoku. So.
Strong. Let's see here. What's up, Gus? Says 4-1 with a 172 point win. Congratulations.
Nice.
Jersey J 5-0 on all my big money leagues. He says your take on Walker got me ahead on him. Thank you. Jersey
right
J
on.
giving you props there. And then John Nateki says, I have an offer from someone. Trade away Jonathan Taylor and Pitts and receive Godwin and Swift. Would you do it? At RB, I have Barkley, JT, Hall, Pierce, and Robinson. Wide receivers, Sutton, Amon-Ra, Olave, Curtis Samuel, tight end, and Njoku Pitts. I wouldn't trade away Jonathan Taylor and Pitts here to get Godwin and Swift back. I mean, Jonathan Taylor is probably on the back end of this injury comeback too. So I think you stick with that monster you got there.
If Pitts doesn't come back around, egg on our face, but we all know the upside of Pitts. We've already seen it his rookie season. We're hoping it comes back around. But I mean, you might be giving away the best player on either side of this.
Pacheco experiment is over. I'm dropping him, and it's hot, bros. We've got some friends saying don't do it, but I think it's a three-headed monster right now until we get some more clarity. So I'm with you.
This could be a name. Pacheco could be a league winner come week 10. But what we're looking at right now, you got to be holding out for something that there's not a path towards at the moment.
Spend all $75 of my WAB on Walker, yes, and don't think twice about it. Yes, exactly.
I hope you get enough.
Connor has a rib injury. That's what it was. Thank you, Albert. Appreciate that clarification there. We got some love for the DJ Dallas. Was it DJ Dallas? Yeah, DJ Dallas picture. He hasn't blinked since the 3rd grade. Yeah, he was a mean dog in there. Let's see. Fields, Russ, Goff, rest of season. Pick 2, bros, and why? Pick 2 bros here.
Looking for some
I guess I'm still going to go Russ and Goff. I don't feel great about Russ, but I think there's nothing making me even excited about Fields. Well, I think he ran for over 40 yards this week. So that was like a blip of like, hey, there's something there.
Justin Fields had the most points he's had all fantasy year. He had 19.77. Tossed the ball 15 times for 208 yards. That is a season high. 1 touchdown. He's had 2 games with a passing touchdown and 3 games without one. And he has 1 rushing touchdown. He's got 4 total touchdowns on the year. Bro, there's been 5 games played. He's got 4 total touchdowns. That's not a lot of touchdowns.
That's not great. And
I still see he's fast. He's really quick, but I don't know. It's hard for me to take Fields over Russ, but I'm gonna take Russ over Fields. I'm with you.
Let's see. So Monir N says start 2 half-point PPR: Walker, ETN, Hunt, Aaron Jones. I'm going Jones and Walker here, Austin. What do you think about this one?
This is Ken Walker.
Yeah.
Aaron Jones, Ken Walker, and
then you love that you have all these backs. These are great backs to have.
This is nice.
You're going to be set up pretty nice. Do I trade Aaron Jones and Hunt for Jacobs? Ooh, that's an interesting one. I think I'd keep Aaron Jones for the upside.
There's so much upside to Aaron Jones, but how can
we
say
watched
that?
A.J. Dillon's snaps go down and his usage go down the last few weeks as well. Now, that might change after they lose this game and not throw it onto.
How good is Josh Jacobs? Gut check on Josh Jacobs. Who is he through 5 weeks?
I mean, I think he's an RB1. He's a back-end RB1 to me. I mean, the usage is there.
And he's only been going up, man.
That's the thing is like as this offense has gotten a little bit more juice, he's gotten better. So you could like logically say, oh, featuring him is good for our offense.
Dude, a couple of years ago, we used to say Josh Jacobs, the only thing getting in his way of true RB1 production was the targets. He's gotten 5 catches the last 3 games, 31 yards or more the last 3 games, to go along with 13 rushing attempts, 28 rushing attempts, 21 rushing attempts. He's averaging 5.38 yards per carry. We thought this Las Vegas Josh McDaniels offense wasn't going to be good for Josh Jacobs. It looks like we were 180 degrees wrong on that.
Yes,
he's thriving.
That could have been an answer to the question we were asking at the top. Is just hindsight. What were you so wrong on? He is. I mean, he is it. You know what I would do here personally, and Austin, you could tell me if I'm off base here. I'd actually go ETN and Hunt for Jacobs. You keep Aaron Jones, you keep Kenneth Walker. And then you get Josh Jacobs. Yeah, if you can make that work, because ETN's, show him some stats. He's been increasing his usage. Try and sell him on that.
Great week last week.
Yeah, so I think he did have the good week as well. So I think that's what I would be willing to do. Do I trade Stevenson for Higgins? Jamar and Evans are my wide receiver. I wouldn't be getting rid of Stevenson right now at all. And this is a guy who got rid of Stevenson all over. So I wish I hadn't. But I did not know this was going to happen with Damian Harris. And now he's out for, maybe a month or longer with his hamstring. So, yeah, you're about to feast with Stevenson. And at least see a couple weeks of this. If you want to sell Stevenson, like get out on the peak. We haven't even seen
you got to enjoy this, Randy. Enjoy next week with a Higgins-less Jamar and a Harris-less Stevenson.
Yes.
You might get banging weeks out of Jamar Chase and Ramondre Stevenson. And then you could trade Stevenson for even more.
Yep. Should I hold on to Kyle Pitt? Oh, we got this one in, so we appreciate that one. Let's see. Tyler Lockett is a beast. Those Seattle receivers donging right now. Yep. Is Kenny Pickett a backup option later in the year? Seems as if he is putting up decent numbers.
Yeah. Like Kenny Pickett was the #1 quarterback off the board. He's got a little bit of zip, and the offense has got weapons. Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and George Pickens. That's not a bad wide receiver trio. Mike Tomlin has produced fantasy relevant quarterbacks more than once, and I am not putting a flag down on Kenny Pickett. But you ask, is he an option later in the year? I'm not closing myself off to that possibility.
Yeah, the schedule does open up right now for the next 3. He's got Tampa Bay, Miami, Philly. That's a murderer's row after playing Buffalo as well. But then they've got the bye. Then you see defenses like Indy, Atlanta, and Baltimore later on, Carolina, Las Vegas. Those are some secondaries that can be had. So I think he's definitely worth a stash for later in the year. Deeper leagues.
Donnie here asking, drop one, Devontae Parker or Josh Reynolds for Eno.
I guess I'm probably dropping Josh Reynolds because the Lions go on bye. You can't use Reynolds this week. They should get more of their players back after the bye, which would kind of cap Reynolds' upside. Not that Parker's been great, but he's had some pop games.
Was Reynolds?
Yeah. But, Reynolds, you can see it being directly related to Swift and Amon-Ra being out of the lineup. Shark as well. So those guys coming back, I think, would limit Josh Reynolds.
The one thing I'll throw out is, I don't know, Josh Reynolds week 3. Amon-Ra St. Brown still had 73% of the snap. That is the game where he did go down. He came back into it. So this still is in that Amon-Ra St. Brown is hurt. But Reynolds in that game, 10 targets, 96 yards, and then 81-92. I'm wondering if Reynolds maintains any role in that offense as the #2 wide receiver, even with Amon-Ra St. Brown. What do you think?
I think
have potential.
I think the other option here is no, I don't, because Swift will probably be back. We've got Hawkinson, we've got Shark, who's missed some time too. And I just think that it's probably going to cap Josh Reynolds' upside. We're not.
Yeah, but here's the thing on Devontae Parker, man. 97% snap share 2 weeks ago. He had 2 catches for 24 yards. He caught that tutty, which was nice. But then 52% snap share, no targets, no catches last week.
I guess versus Devontae Parker, yeah, you could probably keep him because there is contingent value with Reynolds. So it's like if one of these pieces misses, then he's a nice guy to plug in as a guy that gets picked up. So yeah, I could be with on that. I could be with you on that. Eno is the great ad over both, but yeah. That is, let's see what Ross is saying. What up, Ron? What up, Donnie? What up, Travi and Austin? Appreciate you. What's up, guys? Let's see.
Nash here asking.
I have Jonathan Taylor, Breece Hall. Should I add Jeff Wilson or a different running back in case of injury? I mean, if you can add Jeff Wilson off of waivers, yeah. It just would depend on who you're going to be dropping. But I think Jeff Wilson right now has been donging. Like, he's been doing really great in that offense. And I think he'd be definitely a great backup to these two guys. Let's see here. Wampers. Do I trade Kamara for Swift? I feel like they would get vultured, but who is the best? They both get vultured, but who's the best rest of season? It's an interesting question. I'll pitch it to you, Austin. You have, in our League of Record, you have Alvin Kamara. In our League of Record, I have DeAndre Swift. I'm more inclined to say Swift because I trust the offense a little bit more, but we did see Kamara's kind of best game last week and some nice positive tones going forward there.
Kamara had his best game of the year. He had a ton of targets, ton of receiving yards, good amount of touches, a lot of yards on the ground, and they won the game. And this was still with Taysom Hill getting 4 touchdowns. Swift brings a lot of that to the table. The problem is he's just hurt right now. So, I'm aware of a possible setback. I'm aware of these things, but I don't believe in Jamal Williams. I think that door falls out from underneath. I think I go Swift. I think Swift is like the new Kamara, and I think there's still a lot of juice and energy in that team. I think I lean Swift, but it feels gross to be putting a thumbs up on a guy who's out and a guy who looks like to be on the resurgence. So,
Stro tonight, welcome to the show. Says thoughts on D-Hop's coming back, worth trying to trade for. I think he's a decent go get right now. It depends on what you have to what you have to give up for him. But you didn't have to hold on to him throughout the whole suspension. So I think it's if somebody's willing to if they're tired of it. I doubt
if you get a bargain on him, do it. But I say this all the time: if you can trade hype for substance, do it. So I would actually be encouraging whoever's got DeAndre Hopkins to trade DeAndre Hopkins for a high-end wide receiver too. If you could get away with that, I would do it fast because we just don't know what we're going to be seeing from DeAndre Hopkins and what I think is this lifeless Cardinals offense. So yeah, I like it if you can get a value on him.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. So AZN play R99. Do I trade Kamara for Swift full point PPR? Oh, I think this was the same question. We got you that answer there. Any streaming defenses you like this week? Man, I would have said I like Green Bay again, but man, I did not like the end of that game. They are playing the Jets. Cincinnati versus New Orleans is interesting with the QB situation going on there. Some other ones you can.
Let me take a look at our League of Record and which defenses we have available. Bears against Washington. I don't like Chicago's defense enough. I don't think they do enough. The Browns are just kind of interesting. They've been bad on defense, but they're going up against a really weird New England offense. I don't actually think it's going to be reckless enough. As much as I think Bill Belichick is a suppressor and all of these things, I think he does run a fairly tight ship, which isn't good for the chaos element, which is what you really want from your streaming defense. Indianapolis Colts against Jacksonville. It's got a little bit of that for me.
Yeah, I like that. I even like Jacksonville against Indy too, as well. I think both those defense are decent streams this week as well. The things to look for, Jersey J, typically you want the team that's the home team. You want them favored, and you want a lower over/under. That's what I like to look for in these defenses when you're streaming, because that gives you the best option to avoid kind of these blowout games. If they're at home and they're favored, they got a better shot to kind of show up on the defensive end. So those are the things I like to look for.
I look for the chaos element. I love the low score side of it, but I'm also not looking for a slow-paced game. I want a sloppy, fast game. That's the best thing. So as much sloppy, high-speed energy as we can get yourself some sack fumbles, get yourself some chances of some pick sixes. Yeah.
Sure. All right, and that wraps it up for us here. We got through all your questions. We appreciate you, Whisper Nation. Appreciate Alex trying to make it on here. We'll try and get him on next week as well. Everybody that was in the chat with these fire questions, Whomper, ZZ, Stroda Knight, Jersey J, Ronald, Noah Coe, Anthony, Donnie helping us out in the background. We appreciate you as well. Randy Miller, Jersey J, of course, Monir N, Franz, Albert, Lady V, always gracing us with her presence. We appreciate you. Austin, any last words for Whisper Nation as we roll into the rest in midweek here? Waivers are going through tonight in most leagues.
You know what I'd say is have fun with not winning. Like, I think we overblow winning in fantasy football so much. One person wins it all. You're probably not going to win. There is so much awesome shit that happens throughout the season if you just don't let yourself get so emotionally devastated by losses. And I'm saying we say the things we need to learn ourselves, but I hope you have a good community within your league. Everybody there cares. Get to the chat, get to the group thread, share your pain, have some self-deprecating humor, enjoy it, embrace it. Like, people will feed and enjoy and build up. Like, if you throw an honest, sad bone out there, like, just watch how the whole community in your fantasy league gets it going. Find things to enjoy that are more than just winning, because most people don't win in fantasy football. So there's just so many great things about this game we play. Don't pretend like winning is the only one.
And never give up, as our boy Troy said last night. Yeah, it was a great adage there. Well said there, Austin. We appreciate everybody that was with us here tonight. For Austin Sear, for Donnie Tubbs, I'm Big Travie. We're the Fantasy Whisperers. We're out. Peace.
Right here.
Look at you go. You made it to the end of another one of our videos. Hey, if you still have some questions, I totally understand. Or you just want to join an awesome fantasy football community, head on over to our Discord chat. Link is in the description below. And if you're